Just a little background knowledge about the class. There are 24 children in the class. 5 are ESL children. 5 speak another language at home, but English is their dominant language. 1 child has cerebral palsy and has an integration aid working with them. 1 other child has a language difficulty and quite a profound learning disorder and speaks another language at home. And then we have 2 children who have auditory processing issues and 1 who has a behaviour issue as well. The ESL children.
Yep.
Diversity.
So within that class, with the ESL children, we've got Vietnamese, Tamil, and 2 Urdu speakers. And this is their first time in an English learning environment. Within the class, like Tammy said, there are 5 children who do speak another language besides English at home, but English is their dominant language. And the languages represented are Italian, Turkish, like I said, the 2 Urdu children, Bosnian, Greek, Vietnamese, and Tamil.
I think, and there are different, I suppose, perspectives in terms of how much they need to know of their own home language as to how much they need to know of English when it's used and how it's used. And we've been working with those children to try and basically work out when that could happen. For someone like Cindy, who started off at the beginning of the year with no English, and who's now talking a lot, I suppose her mother's concern is now how much she's going to use her Vietnamese. So that's a conversation that we're having and talking about, trying to choose, might speak English during the week and then speak Vietnamese on the weekends. Because her mother's the family's very committed to her having strong English skills in order to manage at school. Throughout most of the filming, you'll see 4 people in the classroom. So there's Beth, who works as our ESL teacher and literacy support. Do you want to have a little bit of chat about your role?
With my role, I'm meant to work with the classroom teachers on their language program, on their literacy program. This year we've chosen to focus on the writing text types, and what we've done with our PYP units of inquiry, we've identified what text type matches up nicely with each unit of inquiry. So for example, with Tammy and the preps, one concept that they're looking at is change, and your other concept is function. So what we said was the text type that matches up nicely with this is procedure. So we are spending the time when they're looking at the unit of inquiry, the 6 weeks or so of that unit. We'll also be looking in our language at procedure and at procedure text. So that will come in all different forms in their reading groups, in their guided reading, with their writing, and with some of our oral language activities, we'll focus on this idea of procedure. So that's my role, is to really work with the teachers to develop that program, because I'm not in the classroom all the time that literacy is happening or that the unit is happening. So they need to have the tools to be able to go ahead when I'm not there.
And the advantage of that is, with Beth working as literacy support as well as ESL, when she plans literacy with me, then when she works with the ESL children, she can front load them on things like vocabulary, doing things like joint construction, and looking at what kind of support they need in order to be able to cope with some of the activities that we're going to do at a later date. So that works really well for us. Then we have Sarah at the moment, who is a student teacher doing her 4th year, just about ready to teach, and she's been in working on the unit of inquiry and the procedural text, so she's taken on a small group role you've seen as we've been doing the lessons. And the other person who's really important is Pam, who is an integration aide, who is there to work with 2 children in my class, but we tend to use Pam in a way that she works with one small group, particularly if there's something that we're going to do that those children are going to struggle with. She might take them aside and do a similar thing to what Beth does in terms of front loading them with information that they might need, or she might work with a small group, or sometimes she might actually work with the whole class and I'll work with a small group or individually with that child. So her role changes depending on what our needs are.
And I think that's a really good thing to highlight, is when you've got so many people in the classroom, for you as the classroom teacher, I think it's got to be quite difficult to manage, or it could be a challenge to manage 3 other adults in the room and manage a classroom of 23 different people. But it depends on your need, and it depends on the purpose, and it depends on the activity, how that will use. And every time it could look different. it's not just Pam because she's the integration aide for one child, that she sits and she's the whisper and radiator for that one child. She's trying to integrate that child as much as possible into your classroom.
Some people don't like having lots of people in the classroom, but the reality is it breaks down my workload and gives everyone a lot more time. On a Tuesday morning, we have 3 parents who offer to help, so that's the time we do our interactive writing, because we've got Pam in there as well. So there's 5 people, we can get into small groups and we can use that, and everyone's time's utilised. No one's sitting around feeling like they don't have anything to do, and all those children then get to experience all the different learning styles of all those people in the room. So you're hoping at one point that someone's meeting everyone's need at some point.
And it varies and it looks different. So you're like the conductor, bringing together the orchestra to make it
sound very special.
But it's true, I think, as the classroom teacher and as the ESL teacher, literacy and ESL, I'm going into your room and I need to work with you, and we need to work together, but you have to conduct all of that to make sure that all these different groups come together and sing off of the same, or play off of the same sheet.
When we take on those different roles of scribe or talking or behaviour management or modelling or any of those kinds of things that we do, I think it works particularly well for that group of children because because you do have those behaviour issues and you do have those language issues, they need to have that visual cue all the time. They need to have someone up there conducting the orchestra, making sure that they've got something to be watching and they've got something to do. So while I'm writing something on the board, you're pointing to pictures, you're showing, they've got that visual and that auditory thing happening all at the same time.
That's right, and it just is it's a matter of coming together. And I think as well, the children hear different voices, they hear different explanations. We see things in a different way. So I might see something, think, okay, I can explain it this way, and that might get a small group of children, so that we make sure then that everyone gets to hear the same message.
And I just think it's meatier delivery too, because you are giving them all those cues.
Yeah.
You've got all those people in there.
And it's just much more fun.
Absolutely.
Don't like to be by myself.
No, we get a bit lonely.
It is. So it's really fun. And you can share those great moments.
Yeah.
You can share those great laughs. The things when sometimes you just think, what has that child just
And those
said?
things that confuse you about children.
That's right.
You also have someone there to help you assess them and say, okay, well, this is where they're up to, where we're going to take them next.
That's right.
Or look at where they've come from. Isn't that fantastic?
That's
but
right.
I think it's having someone, they're the children that you normally are borderline. Sometimes you're worried about where you're going to move them and how you're going to move them. So to have someone else there to do that with, I think, is really important too. And not to devalue Sarah and Pam in there as well, because they see things that we don't.
Absolutely.
Pam's a mother of 6 and been doing this for a long time, and she picks up on things that kids are doing. And Sarah's been doing the same thing. She's along having small, quiet conversations with kids that I wouldn't normally get the opportunity to do. And so that feeds back to me and lets me work out, okay, how are we going to run the next session? What do they need? Where do they need to go? Beautiful.